I met Nick through a mutual friend while standing in the student center at school. For some reason, I felt led to invite him to a Bible study some friends and I had started. He said, "Sure, sounds interesting," and the conversation quickly moved on. I didn't know it at the time, but he would tell me later that his actual response was more like, "Who the bleep does this kid think I am? I don't want anything to do with a Bible study." A semester went by and I was walking out of the first day of my neurobiology lab, and I realized that Nick was sitting in the front row of the lab, and he grabbed my arm as I was leaving class and simply said, "Hey, do you still run that Bible study? I'd like to come." Here's the story. Nick is a freak athlete and one of the best soccer players in our school's history. He is wicked fast. The culture on the soccer team at that time came with frequent exposure to drugs, alcohol, and a whole lot of partying. And Nick dove in and did quite well for himself for a while, until one day, just before Christmas break, he took a hit of what he thought was a blunt and ended up with a month-long paranoid and paranormal experience that shook him to his core. After a month of rehab, he came back to school hungering for something different. I didn't know Nick's story, and I sure as heck didn't know God's plan. Today, Nick is one of my best friends. We lived together for the last year and a half of school and have shared a portion of life together that I will never forget and could have never orchestrated in my wildest dreams. And all because the tiny part I played was one day I invited a random guy to a Bible study. Biological reproduction is the process by which plants and animals give rise to offspring. Reproduction and the motivation toward that end is born out of a natural and organic drive. Animals and plants are driven to reproduce. It is instinctual, natural, ingrained. Now, what on earth does the natural drive to biological reproduction have to do with Jesus and evangelization? Have you ever met someone who is fresh off the conversion bus? By that I mean someone who for the first time is experiencing the real and tangible love of God. Someone who has been touched to the core of their being that they, of all the people on earth, has a Father that cares for them, a brother who died for them to experience this new life, and the presence of His Spirit in them making all things possible. Well, I have. And those people flat out evangelize. Everybody. I had a buddy in college who started to experience the love of God in his life, and when he walked in the room, you could start a stopwatch. And by the time that thing hit 60 seconds, he was talking to somebody about Jesus. It was normal, natural, instinctual to share this newfound love. I have found that as we grow in love with God, it actually becomes more natural, not less, more organic to those who receive it, and less coercive or set on persuasion. I was at a barber shop several months ago getting a haircut, and my barber and I got to talking. Soon after taking a casual interest in his story, he was giving me his whole testimony, a life filled with abuse, hardship, poverty, sin, and loss. Before he got out, he was in a biker gang, had seen the love of his life die of an overdose, and most of his friends abandon him. What could I possibly offer this guy on a day I'm just rushed trying to get a haircut before I pick up my kids from daycare? Well, Jesus knew. To pray with him for strength, provision, and freedom right there on the spot in the middle of that barber shop. A man who has lived a life of death and despair, asking Jesus to set him free. Just like my own conversion all those years ago, disciples fully alive have a natural instinct to evangelize. If you've never experienced the instinctual desire, the natural passion, the deep inborn motivation to share Jesus' love, the story of your journey of faith, your why for discipleship with someone else, I encourage you, I implore you, before you attempt to convince yourself or someone else of the right way to behave or to act, to go back and ask God to allow you to fall in love again and allow Him to reveal the deep love through which He first created sonship or daughterhood in you. A disciple fully alive has an instinct, a natural impulse to share the love of God with others. Regardless of the outcome of immediate evangelization, Whether that be sitting with a lifelong brother or sister journeying through life together, or praying for a stranger along the road, the disciple fully alive rejoices and relishes whatever result their evangelistic effort brings, knowing in every situation and in every place, by invoking the name of Jesus and sharing testimony of His love, that His presence and power was brought into the world. The disciple fully alive in Jesus Christ evangelize according to rhythm, instinct, and result.